Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Having defined illness as really a mental state, a mental condition, born of attachment to the physical instantiating, manifesting process of energy into mass, matter, things, from nomina to phenomena. Vimalakirti, Shakyamuni, Buddhism then says, okay, given this condition of our samsaric physical existence and our perceptive consciousnesses that are constantly being satisfied by objects with which to instantiate the cognitions of those consciousnesses, and taking all of that as a definition of the problem in Buddhism, that condition of thingifying, of perceiving things, which by the very nature of perceiving means some kind of possession, ownership, that attachment, identification, that is that, therefore I am this. That duality is the foundation for all human stress and anxiety. And therefore, its entirety is viewed from the Buddhist pursuit of a clear, unbound mind, perception, experience, labels this, umbrella terms all of this as illness, sickness, delusion, illusion, all the various words you might want to apply to define in our incessant nature of identification as illness. And so now Vimalakirti, who has been answering this question about how does the bodhisattva with illness cure this illness? Well, this is the fundamental question of Buddhist practice, is that we are in this condition. And so if we want to experience liberation from it, does that mean we annihilate the body? Does that mean we annihilate the universe? Does that mean we have to get rid of everything? Well, no. That again is identification. If that is that and this is this, then in order to be this without that, I need to get rid of that. That's not right. That's a physical, trapped in the matrix kind of reasoning. What Buddhism says instead is, no, it's all good. It's all part of being enlightened. If you're seeking in your mind how to be a better parent, You don't surmise that to be a better parent, free of all the anxieties you have as a parent, is, well, just get rid of the children. Then no problem being a parent. Well, then you're not a parent. Apparently. I couldn't resist. Do you see? So, enlightenment, the Buddha-ness of the mind, the experience of this entire play of passions, isn't to get rid of the play of passions. It's to experience it from a place of compassionate observation. View the canoers in the rapids without jumping in the rapids yourself, or perhaps more accurately, extracting yourself from the rapids. So now, in this conversation, Vimalakirti Shakyamuni is going to dive deeper into the nature of how do we, as bodhisattvas, wrestle with the quasi-confrontation of the attached tendencies and conditioned universe without the stress and passions and anxieties about our possessions and loss and all. How do we disconnect from that? What does that look like, sound like? And can we actually define this with words? It's not going to be easy. So we have to leave our mind open to try to transcend the words and understand what's being pointed out. What's the field of energy that we should be transferring our experience into, rather than staying mired in concreteness and duality? How do we make that shift? That's the crux of Buddhist practice. We do it as Lotus Sutra practitioners. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, disconnect and reconnect to a different experience, a different reality perception. Yes? So let's continue. This ailing bodhisattva of ours has no sensations of pain or pleasure, and yet he allows himself to feel such sensations. And while the law of the Buddha is incompletely practiced, he does not seek to wipe out such sensations in himself and gain entry into final enlightenment. So, remaining a physical thing, of course, participating in the physical life, universe, how do we then shift the mind away from that physicality to an all-encompassing knowing? My incense went out. Do you mind if I light a few? Sorry. I just like to have that aura of that sensation of smell reminding me of why I'm here, what's going on here. Anyway, any device we can use to help our practice, yes? And I'm stumbling all over myself. Just a man, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Trying hard to be a sentient being. So, if he feels pain, you and I, if we feel pain in his body, he thinks of the living beings in the lower realms of existence and summons up a mind of great compassion, saying to himself, I have regulated and controlled myself, and now I must regulate and control other living beings. but he should simply rid them of their illness and not deprive them of anything, merely teaching and guiding them so that they can cut off the source of the illness. I see, this is a very important statement. We're human beings, and when we start practicing, we're often told, we're often told that, we need to break other people's beliefs, or we need to somehow, in one form or another, do the work for them, kind of push them into something. And that is never the description of bodhisattva. It simply isn't. Even Nichiren would not agree with that. Rather, as Vimalakirti points out here, is that we're not teaching them to simply not be sick. We're teaching them that sickness is a result of these illusory attachments. And therefore, logically, if you get rid of these perceptions of attachment, possession, loss, and you shift your perspective to what you know in your mind already is this great engine of life, then the obsessions, the passions of the accruing, possessing, losing, anxieties, they get minimized to the point where they simply don't matter anymore. You transcend the illness. The illness, the possession, the losing, whatever creates that is still there. But your relation to it is severed, minimized, changed. This is the goal of practice. To enliven, invoke, experience that detached, observational mindset more and more, to the point where those passionate attachments to things get less and less important, less and less overtaking of your mind's experience of life. Make sense? What is meant by the source of illness? It means having troublesome entanglements. Exactly what I'm talking about. Where there are troublesome entanglements, these become the source of illness. You've identified with something, someone, some emotion, right? You could spend all day long listing entanglements of things. And it's from those entanglements where all suffering is created. Stop creating the suffering by simply observing those things without being your mind entangled in their manufacture, in their construction. Just observe the construction. Sounds easy enough to say, right? But this is our goal. What are the troublesome entanglements tied to, right? What are they entangling? They are tied to the threefold world. And how does one cut them off? By realizing that there is nothing to grasp at. There's that word realizing again. We're not inventing anything here. We're realizing that we are tumbling along with this entanglement of permanentizing, hanging on to, worry about losing, right? You can't worry about losing something if you don't attach yourself to it in the first place. By realizing that there's nothing to grasp at. If one ceases to grasp at anything, there will be no more troublesome entanglements. Simple. What is meant by realizing there is nothing to grasp at? So we're going to dissect this, right? You can see where Nagarjuna got it. The idea for that kind of, it's an old idea. Just dissect something until there is no more. Why? Ultimately, when you answer the question why, you come up with nothing, yes? It means having done with dualistic views. When you want to know how to stop entangling yourself to things, ultimately, it means stop seeing self and other. Stop seeing this and that. Stop analyzing everything in your environs as a separate, including the environs, as a separate thing. Stop that. Change your mind. View everything as one manifestation in each and every single thought moment. This is a process. This is a wave. This is a flow. I cannot own what is not. I can only observe what is ising. Follow? What is meant by dualistic views? It means viewing this as internal or viewing that as external. Have done with such views, and there will be no more grasping at things. Because you're grasping, it's like grasping through time, right? I want to make that momentary instantiation of some tendencies and conditions permanent. But what you're grasping at is the past. It's no longer there. It's being moment to moment, just like you. So there's nothing to grasp. There's only something to observe. And so your participation then becomes much more intimate. This moment of my instantiation coincides with the moment of all these instantiations. Right? That's highly depersonified. Manjushri, this is how the ailing bodhisattva should go about regulating and controlling his mind. Assisting others to this realization is the job of the bodhisattva, not controlling their minds, as you might have surmised from the English translation here. Not regulating and controlling the minds of others, because there's the problem, others. Avail liberation to these co-existent minds so that they can come to this same realization. That is the bodhisattva work. By doing so, he cuts off the sufferings of old age, sickness, and death, the whole ball wax, the whole reason for this Buddhism. Yeah. If he fails to do so, then all his practice and accomplishment in the past will be void of wisdom or profit. He will not be accomplishing bodhisattvaness. The practice will become an idle pursuit, another habit. A person who has overcome a sworn enemy deserves to be called a hero. In the same way, one who has cut off both old age, sickness, and death may be called a bodhisattva. Now, please understand, once again, it's not that we won't get old. It's not that we won't be sick. It's not that we won't die. It's that these terms, these words, are labels for things that we stress about. They are a way of attaching ourselves to things that we can't control. They're just part of the process. So when we truly detach, de-entangle ourselves in those concerns, then the concern part evaporates and we simply experience. This ailing bodhisattva should also think to himself, here's another rule for understanding what it is to be a bodhisattva. What is our goal? What is our operating standard? What is it we're doing? This illness of mine has no reality, no existence, and the illness of other living beings likewise has no reality, no existence. Yes, it's occurring, absolutely. It's not a denial of reality here. The denial, if it is there, is more a detachment from the constant persistence we try to apply to every single tendency and condition. Everything is momentary. The process itself isn't persistent. It's just a moving, moment-to-moment manifestation of energies, tendencies, and conditions. What is produced by those energies manifesting is gone the minute it instantiates to the next moment. Excuse me. This illness of mine has no reality, no existence, and the illness of other living beings likewise has no reality or nor existence. When we adopt this view, if he should conceive a great compassion, if he should conceive a great compassion that is marked by affection and concern for living beings, he should at once thrust it aside. Now, that's not a negation of compassion. What that is the key word affection. That's an entanglement. So here we come to this awkward definition of love. What is love? You would say, well, it's affection. No, not true, compassionate love. Love is seeing the situation well beyond the moment-to-moment instantiation, yes? I don't look upon my brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, teachers, as individual things, identities. I look at them as life processes that remind me of this magnificent engine of life. Everything acting, responding. It's like if you throw a pebble into a pond, you can identify each ripple and wave as it radiates out throughout the pond. But as a bodhisattva, you need to understand that you're looking at tendencies and conditions of the pond. If you try to grasp one of those ripples as though it were some independent thing, you're going to be greatly disappointed, aren't you? And you're stressing and anxiety about where that little swell is going and where it disappeared to. That's samsara. Because the bodhisattva must rid himself of all earthly passions caused by external defilement when he summons up his great compassion. If his compassion is marked by affection and concern, then he will have feelings of weariness and revulsion toward the realm of birth and death. You'll be entangled. But if he can put aside affection and concern, he will feel no weariness and revulsion. Whatever realm he happens to be born into, he will not be blinded by the affection or concern. There's a lot to unpack in that sentence, yeah? Whatever realm he is born into, moment-to-moment manifestation, one of the 3,000 existences, realms of being, whatever that momentary instantiation is constructed of, what freight train of energies is manifesting, if anywhere in those potential realms you are manifesting a personage, a mind that is attached, that is weary, concerned about, affectionate, wanting to hold, maintain, be with, all of that will lead you to suffering. So how should we experience others? Simple. Don't experience others. Experience beings. Experience the many ripples of the pond as expressions of the pond. Isn't it much more fascinating to watch as the light glints off of every little ripple in the pond? Don't admire yourself. Don't entangle yourself with the independence of those ripples. Rather, remind those ripples as you do yourself that this is the pond. He is not bound by the conditions of his birth, and hence he is able to preach the law for living beings and liberate them from their bonds. Look at the pond with me. See, this isn't my birth from the womb. This is my birth from the last moment. As the Buddha has said, if one is in bonds himself, to suppose he can free others from their bonds is hardly reasonable. But if one is himself free of bonds, it is perfectly reasonable to assume he can free the bonds of others. Therefore, the Bodhisattva must not conjure up bonds for himself. Again, sounds easy to do, but the more we practice and the more we understand the depth of this reasoning, the profundity of it alone will send you to your mandala, yeah? Namo Myo Renge Kyo. How do I inculcate this perceiving, this knowing, this beingness into my life? Because in this age of degeneration especially, we are constantly barraged by look at me, 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 look at me. There is nowhere in history or time that the monkey mind has not been louder. What is meant by bonds and what is meant by liberation? To become infatuated with the taste of meditation is the bondage of the Bodhisattva. Oh, that's a biggie. How many times have I had people email me and go, the basis of Buddhism is meditation. Meditation is everything. Meditation, meditation, meditation. Okay. Yes, it's important, but that's not Buddhism. What are you meditating for? What are you meditating about? What is your goal in meditation? Annihilation? Disappearance? Yeah, I'm talking to Zen. But how many forms of meditation have you heard about in your lifetime? There's some pretty interesting ones out there, right? I used that term when I was teaching martial arts. There is an internal mind of cognizance, of breathing, of chi, of energy, That's all well and good, but that's not Buddhist meditation. Buddhist meditation is to realize what we're talking about right here. That it is imperative as an existing moment-to-moment manifestation of energies to use that energy to liberate everything in our environments, because that's our liberation. There is no division between me and environment, you and the universe. That perception is what keeps us miserable. Change your perception. And by your very change of that perception, you will influence others. And in any way that you can, support them in making this same realization. Where in all that activity is meditation? It's a support. It's an invocation of a quiescent state, an all-encompassing state, a state between noumena and phenomena, without entanglement. And as we course in the world, because that's what a bodhisattva is, a human being with a sentient mind, we affect our environment, everyone around us. That's our first step in influencing people toward enlightenment. But we also need to engage them as humans until they come to this realization. That's the work. And it ain't done by sitting on our asses with our eyes closed contemplating it. That's a tool, and we do it actively, more to the point of what meditation is really about, engaging our Buddha mind. But why engage our Buddha mind if that's all we're going to do? It's not complete enlightenment. Until we influence our environment with that Buddha mind, what we call bodhisattva, we can't appreciate the largesse. Because enlightenment isn't local, it's the universe. It's the whole process of the universe. Whether you believe in some version of CCC as I do, how time creates itself. I won't get into this. Isn't a science channel or physics or cosmology channel, but it's amazing to me always as I learn more and more about these subjects how right on the money Shakyamuni was 3,000 years ago, albeit with different language, of the state of life. The how, if you will. So what is meant by the bonds and what is meant by liberation? To become infatuated with the taste of meditation is the bondage of the bodhisattva. Bondage. We don't want to do meditation because it's our way out. We want to do meditation to provide for us liberation, to influence others, our environment. To be born in this world as a form of expedient means is the liberation of the bodhisattva. There you have it. To be born in this world, whether you see that as coming out of a womb, or you see it more accurately within the discussion of Buddhism, this moment, this moment, this moment, this moment, when you're born as a bodhisattva, your realization occurs, right? You are a form of expedient means. Your very instantiation in this moment doesn't occur isolatedly in your I, your mind, your ego. This manifestation of your Buddha-ness resonates throughout all the universe. You're simply an observer of that manifestation. What a unique way of looking at life. Wisdom without expedient means is bondage. Wisdom with expedient means is liberation. Expedient means without wisdom is bondage. If you know how to talk about Buddhism, but you have no experience of it, shut up. Expedient means with wisdom is liberation. So, in this passage, wisdom stands for the correct mental attitude of the Bodhisattva in his efforts to lead others to enlightenment, and expedient means stands for the actual methods he employs. The process of liberation or enlightenment is successfully completed only when both the attitude and the method are correct. Let me break this down in simple terms. If you're teaching somebody how to chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo so you can explain to them how superior you are to them, then you don't have the right attitude. Pretty simple. If you teach them Namo Myoho Renge Kyo with an intent observation of each of those sounds manifesting in their realms, looking for the glints in their eyes, with the expectation of revolution happening in their sense of self, their realization of Buddha-ness, which is happening right before your eyes, to the degree they're aware or understand, that's on them. But you can see it. And your expectation of it is far more important. That's a different attitude altogether, isn't it? What is meant by saying that wisdom without expedient means is bondage? It means that the mind, full of affection and concern, a bodhisattva sets about to adorn the Buddha lands, lead numerous living beings to them, and regulate himself with the doctrines of emptiness, formlessness, and non-action. This is called the bondage of wisdom without expedient means. Let me read that again. What is meant by saying that wisdom without expedient means is bondage? If you know all of the words of Buddhism, but you don't know how to help someone else reach that understanding, you're just spouting words. It means that with a mind full of affection and concern, your entanglements. Here, let me show you. Let me show you what I know. You're not transferring any knowledge when you do that. You're just expressing your own. A bodhisattva sets about to adorn the Buddha lands. Here's what it looks like. You could do this too if you only knew how. Lead numerous living beings to them, these physical, tantalizing things, and regulate himself with the doctrines of emptiness, formlessness, and non-action. Because you're not really taking any real action there. You're controverting your own. Because you're short-circuiting your enlightenment, yeah? Then you're just an exposition. You're not assisting others toward their enlightenment. This is called the bondage of wisdom without expedient means. You may know a whole lot, but if you don't understand how to sit in it and help others to experience what that is like, then maybe you're an academician, maybe you're a scholar, but you don't know how to do it. What is meant by saying that wisdom with expedient means is liberation? Well, it means that with a mind free of affection, attachment, and concern, A bodhisattva sets about to adorn the Buddha lands, lead numerous living beings to them, and regulate himself with the doctrines of emptiness, formlessness, and non-action, never experiencing weariness or revulsion. This is called the liberation of wisdom with expedient means. It's no longer an exposition of, look what I know. It's an assistance to others to discover what they know, which you couldn't possibly know because they have their own path to this enlightenment. That is what you should know. What do we say in Gangyo? Lead all others to their Buddha-ness. Yeah. What is meant by saying that expedient means without wisdom is bondage? It means that while dwelling among the various earthly passions such as greed, anger, and erroneous views, a bodhisattva sets about planting many good roots of virtue. This is called the bondage of expedient means without wisdom. I'm doing all the stuff. I got the altar. I got the mandala. I'm doing everything. Why aren't I Buddha? What is meant by saying that the expedient means with wisdom is liberation? It means that while removing himself from the various earthly passions such as greed, anger, and erroneous views, a bodhisattva sets about planting many good roots of virtue, bending all his efforts in the direction of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. This is called the liberation of expedient means with wisdom. It's the bodhisattva path. And so over and over again, Shakyamuni says, you can do a lot of work on yourself. Hinayana, for instance, Agama Sutras. And you can achieve a lot. But what you will achieve will only be an assist, an elucidation for you, a human mind, to perceive what is possible. And only will you reach that entire potential of possible when you endeavor to inspire your environment to do that. With or without you, flourish, feed the minds, and your experience will transcend your mind, your earthly instantiation. Then you will know Buddhahood. Manjusri, the ailing bodhisattva, should view all phenomena in this way. And you understand why he's an ailing bodhisattva, right? He doesn't have a cough or a sour stomach. He's ailing because he's human. Because he lives, she lives in the world of affections and concerns, stress and anxiety about possessing and losing. We're all ailing bodhisattvas. And we should view the body and realize that it is marked by impermanence, suffering, emptiness, and absence of ego. That's a constructed thing, the ego, from all that identification, yeah? This is called wisdom. But though his body may be ailing, he should constantly abide in the realm of birth and death. Because we're instantiating moment to moment. Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. Yeah? Bringing benefit to all living beings and never giving in to weariness or revulsion. This is called expedient means. He should further view the body and realize that the body is never rid of illness because it's constructed of it. That illness is never rid of the body. And that this body and this illness are neither prior nor posterior to one another. It's just a condition of being. This is called wisdom. But though his body is ailing, the Bodhisattva never seeks escape into external extinction. That's that fallacy of dualism again. This is called expedient means. Be in this moment fully with the environment, not separate from it. Manjushri, the ailing bodhisattva should regulate his mind by not dwelling in such regulation, but he should not dwell in non-regulation of the mind either. Why? Because if he dwells in non-regulation of the mind, this is the way of the stupid person. But if he dwells in regulation of the mind, this is the way of a voice hearer. I'm doing everything right. I'm doing all the stuff. But you're not actualizing it. You're not realizing the reason for all of this samsaric activity is to transcend it. Therefore, the bodhisattva should dwell neither in regulation nor non-regulation of the mind. To remove himself from such dualisms is the practice of the bodhisattva. How many ways can we circle around this topic over and over and over? Our mind, our ego is extremely creative, yes? To be in the realm of birth and death without following its tainted ways, to dwell in nirvana while not seeking external extinction, such is the practice of the bodhisattva. The practice that is neither that of common mortals nor that of worthies and sages, such is the practice of the bodhisattva. The practice that is neither sullied nor pure, such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Though far transcending the workings of devils, it shows itself in the conquering of numerous devils. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Seeking comprehensive wisdom, yet not seeking it when the time is not right, such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Though he sees that all things are birthless in nature, he does not enter the realm of the absolute, such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Though he sees all in the light of the 12-linked causal chain, or chain of causation, the nidana, he can enter into various erroneous views, such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Not enter into those views to own them, but to perceive as others do, to enable more effective influence. You might say teaching, but I prefer influence, yeah? Because the teaching happens in the individual. Though he addresses himself to all living beings, he does so without affection or attachment. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. If you need an expectation, expect Buddha-ness. Though he longs to be far removed from the passions, he does not seek this through elimination of the body and mind. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Though he moves in the threefold world, he does no injury to the Dharma nature. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Though he moves in the realm of emptiness, he plants many roots of virtue. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. What does that mean, planting roots of virtue? It's a influence toward enlightenment wherever you go. Your seeking mind is planting seeking into the minds around you. Though he moves in the realm of formlessness, he yet saves many living beings. Such is the practice of bodhisattva. There's no denial of thingness. That's the tendencies and conditions in which we are manifest. But we influence all of those dualisms toward. Though he moves in the realm of non-action, he manifests himself by taking on a body. such is the practice of bodhisattva. Though he avoids the arousal of passion, he rouses in himself the determination to do all positive deeds, positive actions. Such is the practice of a bodhisattva. Though he practices the 6 paramitas, he can understand the minds and mental activities of all living beings. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Though he is a master of the 6 transcendental powers, he does not remove himself from the defilements. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. There's no denial. There's no nihilism in Buddhism. This is a mistake to think that way. Though he possesses the 4 immeasurable qualities of mind, he is not greedy for birth in the Brahma heaven. He's not trying to escape and go to some finer place, that magical thinking that so many have in the world today, yeah? It'll be better over there. No, you'll be gone. Though he practices meditation, emancipation, and samadhi, he does not accept the rebirth that is consequent on these practices. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Right? We meditate for clarity. There's no implication of going to another place. That's often a misunderstanding of meditation, yes? Though he practices the 4 states of mindfulness, in the end he does not for long remove himself from the objects of such mindfulness, the body, sensations, the mind, and things. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. This is where coursing as a bodhisattva gets, that phrase gets its meaning, yes? Though he applies himself to the 4 types of correct effort, he does not cease to be assiduous in matters pertaining to the body and mind. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Right? We don't just run into caves and become hermits. We still need to operate in the context and constructs of social behavior. Otherwise, we disconnect ourselves from the very mission of our propagation, our influence. Though he cultivates the 4 bases of supernatural powers, he is already able to wield transcendental powers at will. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Though he cultivates the 5 roots of goodness in himself, he can also distinguish whether the roots or capacities of other living beings are keen or dull. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Though he possesses the 5 powers attained through the 5 roots of goodness, he delights in seeking to acquire the 10 powers of a Buddha. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Though he observes the 7 factors of enlightenment, he can understand all the fine points of Buddha wisdom. Such is the practice of bodhisattva. Though he walks the 8-fold noble path, he also delights in walking the immeasurable Buddha way. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva, behaving well, maximally, toward enlightenment. The 8-fold noble path lines out a life very well lived, which is not only an accomplishment toward betterment, but influence of others, yes? Come on, nose, why are you itching? Though he practices concentration and insight as methods to aid one on to the way, in the end he does not sink into tranquil extinction. You don't want to remove yourself while you have this opportunity. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Though fully aware that all things are without birth or extinction, he adorns his body with auspicious features. Such is the practice of the bodhisattva. Adorns his body. It's not jewelry and a nice haircut. It's just participating in the social, cultural, living organism that is the universe. You don't remove yourself. You don't become a hermit. You don't commit satori. You are a living part of this organism called life. Though outwardly displaying the dignity of a voice hearer or pratyeka Buddha, he never forsakes the Buddha law. Such is the practice of the Bodhisattva. There's a certain kind of ego and arrogance to being a voice hearer or nearly a Buddha, a learning and realization type, right? A Bodhisattva transcends those definitions. You're more of an active instantiation. Though aware that all things in the end are pure in nature, he responds to circumstances by showing himself in bodily form, such as the practice of the Bodhisattva. This is an internal attitude and understanding, yeah? Though insight tells him that all Buddha lands are eternally tranquil and empty in nature, yet he displays various kinds of pure Buddha lands. Such is the practice of the Bodhisattva. In other words, constantly abiding in the realization that all perceptions, our own and those of the people we meet, constitute either a realization of enlightenment in everything we experience, or a passion that brings us down into possession and entanglements, yeah? Though he attains Buddhahood, turns the wheel of the law, and enters nirvana, in fact, he never forsakes the Bodhisattva way. Such is the practice of the Bodhisattva. When Vimalakirti spoke these words, 8,000 heavenly sons in the great assembly, led by Manjushri, all set their minds on attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. And that's the end of chapter 5. Chapter 6, Beyond Comprehension. Well, we've come awfully close to that already, I think, but it'll be interesting to see what the context of this next chapter is, yeah? So there's just so many things about this particular sutra that I find amazing and helpful and sometimes difficult, yeah. But thank you for being here on the journey with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Patrons out there, you guys are amazing on patreon.com/TLK or simply through paypal.me/SifuSylvain. The gifts that are sent here, they're all in the spirit of Namo Myo Renge Kyo, yes. Thank you, thank you. Thank you all for your practice and your courage. Stay healthy, be kind to yourself, and I will see you in the next one, okay? Bye for now.